Good afternoon to all of you. You are welcome in this class. And in the last lecture, if you remember, we started rice grain quality. So first of all, we tried to understand meaning of quality. Quality is just a relative characteristics or things in a person, in a material that distinguishes it from others. For example, if a student has good knowledge in math, so others would say that he's having qualitative knowledge, or he is a person of quality having knowledge in mathematics. So that is his or her additional quality. And it is very subjective term, this quality. So distinctive attribute or characteristics possessed by someone or something. So in case of rice grain quality, you know, there are certain physical and chemical characteristics of the rice grain that affect variety of qualities, like your cooking quality, eating quality, sensory quality, nutritional quality, and also milling quality. And we have seen a range of physical properties of rice, as well as chemical properties. Chemical properties I will discuss today. So in physical properties, you have seen grain size, shape, bulk density, angle of repose, and so on. And broadly, rice grain quality is can be controlled by two factors or two properties: genetic properties or acquired properties. So you can see certain genetic properties were discussed, and then acquired property. In acquired property, moisture content is the most important thing, and others are also there. We could see the important quality traits of rice and their preferences. And you see in this case, you can see that hulling and milling, always people want high hulling and milling, so that it results in high recovery. And you see amylose content. They want intermediate kind of amylose content. So today we will see what is intermediate level of amylo content. They are 21 to 25%. And this gelatinization temperature, intermediate. So these are two very important chemical properties of the rice grain, that is amylose content and gelatinization temperature, which needs to be intermediate.
Sir.
Yes.
Sir, is there any difference or similarity? Sorry, sir, is there any similarity in chalkiness of rice grain and white eye of rice?
White eye of rice.
And chalkiness of rice.
The chalkiness I understand, but I heard this term first time, white eye of rice grain. So right now I do not know.
It is white belly. White belly of rice.
White
belly of rice.
Belly of white belly of rice, maybe for the embryo, but most of the time when we do milling process, the embryo part or ventral part of the grain gets detached. So embryonic part is very easily detached during the process of milling of rice. So in that part, if anything white is there, that could be what you said. Yes, could you repeat on the lower side? Hello?
White belly.
White belly.
White belly.
Belly,
Yes.
I think belly may be on the lower side where embryo was there. So I also do not know what is white belly or white eye. So if you know, you can tell us. There is no harm in learning from each other. Yeah. So anybody knows about white eye or white belly? I note down these terms. White.
Yes, sir. In our BSc literature, it was white belly.
Okay. So white belly.
It is opaque. Sir, it is opaque region in rice grain. Lower side of rice grain.
Very good. Opaque.
So it is opaque translucent region.
Yeah. No, it should be opaque, I think. Opaque. Opaque means non-transparent, I think. So because if you are taking it with respect to chalky grain, this white belly or white eye, if we are taking in respect of chalky grain, then it has to be opaque. Opaque, it is just accumulation of your starch in one place, and then some air spaces, formation of some air spaces around it. So that is your chalky grain. And as per your version, this white eye and white belly are also kind of chalky grains. Is it? Is it true? This white belly and white eye, do they indicate some chalkiness in rice grain?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Is there any
Yes.
kind of similarity in between them or not?
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much. I am very pleased to see that students have, some of you have are prepared well and you have idea. Thank you. So you can stop me anywhere, at any point of time. It does not mean that you will be in trouble or I will get annoyed or I will get angry at you. I would rather love it. Your two-way interaction is very, very important. So whenever you feel that some point you want to make, you just stop me and discuss that point so that each one of us is involved in this learning process. Okay. So now
Okay, sir.
we have also seen some factors that affect the quality of rough rice and then quality of milled rice. So of course, moisture content is very, very important. At right moisture content will provide better shelf life, better milling properties in the grain. So we already discussed it. Then cracked grains we discussed. Variety purity is also important, and angle of repose and size, shape, and length breadth ratio. These are physical quality parameters. Aroma and quality characteristics of milled rice. We discussed certain physical parameters like milling degree, whiteness, translucency, grain length, foreign material, head rice, and chalkiness. And of course, there are three important chemical characteristics or chemical properties of the rice, or you can say they are part of chemical quality or chemical grain quality of rice. So in physical properties, we have seen degree of milling of rice. You have seen whiteness depends upon degree of milling. More the degree of milling, more whiteness will come in the grain. And whiteness is also a vital physical characteristics, and post-harvest management can affect it, and also degree of milling. Head rice is the whole rice or whole kernel, which is more than 75% in length and breadth. Now, aging of rice, we have also seen certain reasons for aging of rice, and it improves the quality of the rice grain. And chalky grains, we discussed, they are undesirable. Chalky grains are undesirable and mainly variability in temperature and moisture, while in the grain filling period particularly, will affect the chalkiness grain, will make more or will create chalkiness. And also it is genetically controlled trait, chalky grains. Then broken gains does not look nice. Today you will see in detail in the practical part. We have one practical part today. There I will discuss this, broken grains. So they also reduce the quality on cooking. And sometimes there may be some color of the polished grain. There may be some development on some creamy color or yellow color, which is also undesirable trait. Now we see certain chemical characteristics of the milled rice. Now you are going to cook the rice. And then what are the chemical properties that tell us whether it has better quality or poor quality? So chemical characteristics of milled rice, there are three important points in this. One is high amylose or simply just amylose content. Amylose content, gel consistency, and gelatinization temperature. So we'll discuss these three chemical properties in detail. So high amylose content, is it desirable? So what happens when you have high amylose content? So as many of you might be knowing that amylose is a kind of a starch. So starch has two kind of compounds. One is your amylose, other is amylopectin. So if you have high amylose content, then rice grains cook dry. They will cook dry, are less tender. They are less tender means they are hard and become hard upon cooling. When they are cooled, they become hard. So nobody would like to eat those kind of rices. What happens when you have low amylose content? In low amylose content, rice grains cook moist and are sticky. So that is also an issue. Many people may not like it. However, some people would want low amylose rices because they do not want, they want sticky rices. Some people prefer sticky rices, but majority of people would like to have amylose content between high and low. That is your intermediate amylose content. We'll discuss in detail shortly. And then you see the gelatinization temperature. Gelatinization temperature. In this, in gelatinization temperature determines the time required for cooking the rice. How much time is required? That is to be decided by gelatinization temperature. We'll discuss in detail this. And then gel consistency, also a chemical property, and it measures the tendency of the cooked rice to harden on cooling. How fast it gets hardened, or uh, does it remain safe or soft?
थोड़ा सा पानी मिलेगा क्या?
Does it remain
हाँ,
soft or it becomes hard upon cooling? So that kind of property is tested by gel consistency. Now, among chemical properties, let us start with the starch, component of chemical quality. There is no doubt about it. Then, Pavitra, what is the problem at your end? Pavitra, hello, Pavitra. You can put off your sound mic. So in starch, and also your video is moving. Yeah, thank you. So component, this starch is a component of chemical quality and major constituent of milled rice. Approximately 90% of the dry matter is starch, major eating quality factor, and it is directly correlated to the volume expansion. Means higher the starch content, higher is the volume expansion and water absorption. Similarly, water absorption will be more if you have high starch during cooking and with hardness, whiteness and dullness of the cooked rice. So it is related to hardness. Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Hello, Tanmay, can you hear me? Hello? Yeah, there was some electric discontinuity. Okay, can you hear now?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Sir,
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Department in agronomy, sometimes there is a breakdown of electricity. So because of that, again, hello. Yeah, two times. It happened two times. I don't know what happens after this. Yeah, Krishna, is it okay? Krishna Patidar? Krishna?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you see the slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, should I continue?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay, okay. I can't do much under such circumstances. So we were discussing about starch. So it is a major constituent of milled rice. Approximately 90% of the dry matter is starch. It is major eating quality factors, and it is directly correlated with the volume expansion and water absorption during cooking, and with also with hardness. Means higher the starch, more is the hardness, whiteness and dullness of the cooked rice. Polymer of D-glucose. This is the chemical aspect about glucose. It is a polymer of D-glucose linked A 1:4 and consists of an essentially linear fraction. Amylose is linear, and a branch fraction is your amylopectin. You might be knowing it, this difference in amylose and amylopectin. So you can see this amylose is linear in chain, and you can see amylopectin. Amylopectin is branched kind of starch. So based upon amylose content, rices are divided into different categories. Rice where amylose may be just 1 to 2%. It is waxy. It is called as waxy rice. And if it is more than 2%, then this is called as non-waxy rice. Then very low content of amylose, 2 to 9%, and low maybe 10 to 20%, intermediate 20 to 25%. So this is desirable amylose content for better quality. Then high can be 25 to 30%. So what happens when you have high amylose means more than 25%, then you will have high volume expansion, dry and flaky during cooking, and hard upon cooling. So that is the problem with the high amylose. So better to have intermediate amylose. Now let us see the next property, chemical property is gelatinization temperature. So it is actually kind of cooking property, you can say, cooking property affected by chemical characteristics. That is your gelatinization temperature. So what is gelatinization temperature? Temperature at which starch in rice begins the process of cooking. Means temperature at which the process of cooking starts. GT is gelatinization temperature of starch granule. The water temperature. You can see the another definition of gelatinization temperature. The water temperature at which at least 90% of the starch granules have gelatinized or swallow irreversibly in hot water. So the first definition was very simple one. When the starch in rice begins the process of cooking. But here you can see when 90% of the starch granules have gelatinized or swollen. Gelatinized here means they have made a gel and they have swollen irreversibly in hot water. That is your gelatinization temperature. Or let us have some more knowledge on GT. So when rice is cooked, starch granules begin to absorb water and swell like a balloon. Another way of expressing the GT means when the rice is cooked, starch granules begin to absorb water and swell like a balloon. As the temperature rises, the granules continue to absorb water until they reach their maximum volume, called the gelatinization temperature. At a certain temperature, they will absorb maximum volume of water, and that ends that is the last point, end point, is the gelatinization temperature. It is at this point that the granules burst and amylose molecules leach into the surrounding water, which causes rice grains to stick together. Higher amylose content delays swelling and increases the gelatinization temperature. Means more the starch amylose content, more swelling. More swelling means it will need higher temperature. So gelatinization temperature increases. Varieties of long grain rice in general have a gelatinization temperature above 70 degrees centigrade, while waxy short grain means very less amylose, gelatinizes at 62 degrees centigrade temperature. Because of this, granule in short grain rice are more likely to burst. The short grain rice can burst, while the granules in long grain rice tend to remain intact after cooking. Means after cooking, you will have sticky nature. Sticky nature if you have too much of amylose. If you have less amylose, then individual grain, cooked grain will be intact and it will not leak the starch. GT is classified for rice starch granules as low. Low is 55 to 69.5 degrees centigrade. This is the low GT gelatinization temperature. Intermediate is 70 to 74 degree and high is 74 to 80 degrees centigrade. It is classified by IRI, International Rice Research Institute. GT is indexed in the breeding program. Now question comes that how to know it. So it is not how to know it perfectly or precisely. Then to know it precisely, these plant breeders are using some indirect methods. So in indirect methods, this is ASB, alkali spreading value, is an indirect method to know the gelatinization temperature. So based on the degree of dispersion of 6 grains of milled rice in 10 ml of 1.7% KOH, potassium hydroxide, after 23 hours soaking at 30 degrees centigrade temperature. So this is how alkali spreading value is specified. I repeat it again. You can take 6 grains of milled rice in 10 ml of 10 milliliter of 1.7% KOH. It is alkali, potassium hydroxide, for 23 hours at 30 degrees centigrade water. So then you can test, you can see in the next slide I will show you, or see another definition of ASV, alkali spreading value. It tests for estimating the GT of a starch. So it is a test for estimating the GT of a starch utilizing a 7-point scale of the degree of spreading of milled rice grains in potassium hydroxide solution. This is how we define the alkali spreading value. So now you can see it is a 7-point scale. The degree of spreading is measured using a 7-point scale. So first is grain not affected. Second is grain swollen. If these are the categories, if it happens that grain is not affected in general or grain is just swollen, then it belongs to 1 to 2, means it is high. It is high, gelatinization temperature is high if grain are just swollen or grain not affected at all. Then you will give 1 to 2 degree. On the right side, you can see alkali spreading values corresponding to gelatinization temperature. And then if you get number 3, grain swollen, collar incomplete and narrow. Your collar is your tip of the rice grain. Grain swallow, collar incomplete and narrow. Then it is point number 3. Then you can say it has GT value in high intermediate. This is a category, high intermediate, high intermediate. And then point 4 and 5. If your result is grain swollen, collar complete and white. If this, or number 5, grain split or segmented, Color complete and whole. Color complete and sorry, if it is 4 and 5, 4 is grain swollen, color complete and white, and then number 5 is grain split or segmented, color complete and white. Then it is intermediate, means temperature requirement will be 70 to 74. So you are just equating the alkali spreading value to the gelatinization temperature by a scale. Then if it is 7 and 6 and 7, 6 and 7 means grains are dispersed, merging with color and grain completely dispersed and intermingled, means perfectly cooked. So in this case, you can say it is 6 to 7 and the temperature will be less than 70 degrees centigrade. So this is how alkali spreading value can be related to the gelatinization temperature. Now, the third important chemical characteristics of
Sir, what is color incomplete and
color?
Hello?
Color is your tip, means the tip part is also color complete means it is also the starch in this is also dispersed. The starch is also dispersed, or it has also soaked the water. Complete. Color are the tips of the rice grain. Tips of the rice grain. Okay. Now see the third property is gel consistency. The gel consistency or GC test means how fast these amylose or starch dries up. Gel consistency test. The GC test was developed to index cooked rice hardness among high amylose rices, because your most of high amylose rices will become hard on cooking. But there may be some rices, even though they may contain high amylose, but they can give you soft gel. They can give you soft gel. To know that, gel consistency test can be performed. So it measures the tendency of the cooked rice to harden after cooling, how fast it hardens or how much it hardens. Within the same amylose group, varieties with a softer gel consistency are preferred, and the cooked rice has a higher degree of tenderness. So after this GT test, you can go for GC test. Harder gel consistency is associated with harder cooked rice, and this feature is particularly evident in high amylose rice. Hard cooked rice also tends to be less sticky. Gel consistency is determined by heating a small quantity of rice in a dilute